in your experience, mating your bees to local or any other bees produces actually improves them rather than
Yeah,
deteriorates their genetics.
yeah. Anywhere they go.
Yeah.
Okay. When beekeepers, let's say in the United Kingdom, when they import selected bees from the rest of Europe, let's say buckfast bees, of course the drones are affecting the the local population of mongrel bees, which they have, which there's a lot in the UK. Okay, their queens are getting mated to selected drones, and it should improve the performance.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, because I have no experience in the UK, I don't know what happens with aggressivity afterwards. But I know that the mongrels there are really aggressive because it's based on mellifera. Seems like Carnica from Slovenia doesn't combine very well with the mongrel.
Yeah.
With the mongrels in the UK, they end up with swarmy and aggressive bees. You see that in Scotland now, they over the past sort of 10 years, that they've been using more and more buckfast bees, whereas before they were very against anything other than near-native Apis mellifera mellifera. Okay, they started having big problems with EFB, European foul brood, because mellifera mellifera is very prone to brood diseases. So they had problems. But now they started using selected buckfast material. Things are going a lot better for them. And I think they're producing queens in Scotland and selling them in the United Kingdom, and they have a lot of satisfied customers.
How do you manage to keep your own breeding programs around hives that are not buckfast?
Through artificial insemination, and I have a mating station as well. I have two mating stations, in fact, which only a couple of people actually know where they are. One of them, only two people know where they are, because we had some problems in the past with the theft of genetic material, and we have to be careful. And through artificial insemination.
So you're not very fond of the old way of open mate them and you select from the best, like some beekeepers accuse us of ruining their years of selection and our drones contributing to their breeding program.
If they've got a breeding program, they have to control the matings. It's as simple as that. Okay, either through isolated mating station, preferably on an island, or through artificial insemination. If you're trying to breed stuff from open mating, I mean, it's a bit of it's like playing dice. Okay, you might come up with something good, but you might come up with something really, really bad.
In Bulgaria, it's widely accepted that the drones give 75% of the genetics to the next progeny when they open mated. How come you are able to produce queens and export them into Europe with those aggressive hives around you?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the myths in beekeeping. Okay, a lot of people say that the aggressiveness is brought from the drones. Okay, it doesn't happen in our case. It all depends on what's mated to what. Okay, if you take an example of Carnica mated to Iberica, okay, it's producing some of the most vicious bees in the whole world. Okay. And Carnica is usually very calm. So, but in the buckfast case, okay, the buck appears, based on 40 years of experience, that the buckfast genes are dominant. Okay, so they're getting mated with Cypria drones. Okay, but the hives are okay. The aggressiveness has disappeared. So yeah, just depends what's being mated with what.
I'm asking you those kind of questions because in Bulgaria we have a program that kind of protects the, at least on paper, the local populations, and many beekeepers are claiming that we are ruining their years and years of selection, and they're warning of the consequences of mongrelization, and they're scaring everybody with near Armageddon scenarios that everything will start falling apart if we use those kinds of bees. What is your opinion on that?
Look, if somebody wants to protect a local population of bees, they can do it. They have to do controlled matings, okay, like buck-fast beekeepers do, and just like anybody else is in a bee breeding program, okay. And what happens at the border? What sort of bees have you got around you? Okay, you have a border with Greece.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bees down there, are they pure Bulgarian?
No.
And in Greece you have Cecropia, Macedonica, Carnica,
Italian.
okay, Italians, buck-fast, and probably on the islands close to Turkish mainland, you have bees which are something like Anatoliaka, okay, extremely aggressive bees, quite dark and with low production. So what happens in the border areas? You have a border with Turkey, okay, where you have have different sorts of bees there, and so it's impossible to keep it pure.
Yeah.
And also, Bulgaria is a part of the European Union.
Yeah.
Okay. What about free trade?
Yes, they arrive here with no problem. Me personally worries me more the illegal import of queen bees, because they come here without health certificates. With the current situations, people are more scared of buying queens from European Union than they're thinking that is illegal, and they sort of put it in their pocket with no papers and that kind of stuff, which for me is more dangerous and doing more harm than
exactly.
Than
when you make the system too hard, people will try to short circuit it.
Yeah.
This applies for everything. It applies for income tax and everything. Look at America in the 1930s when they tried to ban alcohol. Okay, and the prohibition. You had some prominent families that became extremely rich by all this. So the system is there for imports and imports between members of the European Union. If you try to ban imports, it's in my view it's illegal. Okay, because we live in a free trade zone. Okay, so if you become a member of Europe, okay, it's not a menu that you can say, I'll take this and I'll take that, but I won't take this. Okay, you have to either accept everything. We can see that in some places that, like in
Austria,
in a county in Austria, that they're only allowed to keep Carnica. Why are you only allowed to keep Carnica? If I want to keep buck-fast, can't I have buck-fast? Okay. If you want to keep your Carnica, as I said, if you want to keep your Carnica pure, do a selection and control the mating like everybody else does.
Okay, what about the genetic richness? Because selection is reducing the genetic pool and narrowing it down. What about that?
Yeah, so you come to a bottleneck.
Yes, eventually.
Yeah. Okay, you can see what happened in the United States with the New World Carniolan. I think that eventually they got to a situation where they were at a sort of dead end. That's why they visited Europe and tried to get some new genetic material to include in the program. I don't know how successful that was. Well, the things in the New World Carnolian, they came to a dead end. By that I mean it was a one-way street, and suddenly they found they were blocked, and then they needed to include new material in it. That'll happen all the time. Okay, but if you're doing a breeding program with let's say more than 50 breeder queens if you have an area, a county, and you've got there only one type of bee, and you want to keep that one type of bee, I think the chances of becoming inbred are very slim. Okay. It's not very high. Because first of all, you have meiosis in the egg, where there's a crossover of the genetic material, and then you have the queens mating with 12 or 20 drones. So nature is there to have a mix-up of the genetic material. If you can't control the mating, then you're going to get genes coming in from
other places.
Yeah, from other populations, because people are a bit confused about hybridization. Species are one thing. Species are a biological, natural division. Okay, and the subspecies, so-called subspecies, are names given to different populations by taxonomists. But the species are fixed. When you look at them, there's no hybridization or fertile hybrids that come off usually, 99.9% of the time. Whereas the subspecies can be changed by breeding with other populations or subspecies. And then you create new genetic mixes, which have characteristics from both of them, but they can also have some new characteristics which appear from their own, naturally. And that's the way nature works.
Okay, so what about changing the characteristic of a close population, like without mixing them with other subspecies?
Can't. If I have a population of bees, and I want to introduce a character, if there's a characteristic which is missing, okay, it's not going to appear out of nowhere like a mushroom, okay, right? I have to
introduce it intentionally.
Yeah, I have to introduce some genetics in there and hope that that material that is included in that population that I want to change will come up with it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's really complicated, the genetics, and we don't know enough about it even now.
Yeah.
How it works.
Yeah, because
maybe some people know more than me.
We haven't met them.
But they're not talking about it.
Yes.
Okay. For my own operation, I would like to see that I've been trying to get access to populations like Omani, okay, and Yemedica, okay, but I didn't manage up to now because with the Arab countries it's very difficult to get this stuff. They want to keep this genetic material for themselves, but because I can see due to climate change that
it's getting more hotter and hotter.
Yeah, we're going to have problems in Cyprus. I think there's a bit of hysteria about climate change because they say by the year 2050 that humans will not be able to live in Cyprus during the summer. I don't know. People in the past have said made all sorts of predictions about climate change, and they haven't come true. but I think, yeah, as I said earlier on, we have to, for our area, I have to include material from the surrounding area. We're very happy with Mida as material. Anatoliaka,
Sometimes it's not the same as the
well,
Bladam describes it.
it's not the same as the Anatoliaka, which was in the past because of migrated beekeeping, and I think it's extremely hard to find. Perhaps it doesn't exist anymore. Absolutely pure Anatoliaka, and also they have very strict rules about the export of anything from Turkey. There are signs up in the ports and in the airport that it's not allowed to export anything. They protect. It's a genetic treasure house, but they for everything. But they protect it a lot. Like there was a Swiss professor that went there collecting insects, and he was arrested, and they put him in jail, and they were demanding 100,000 euros to let him out, and they had to get paid. They got paid somehow, 100,000, and he was let out. So it's quite dangerous. That's why if you go to Turkey as a European and want to buy queens, they won't sell you queens. They'll sell you the beehive. Okay, so they say we sold the beehive.
We don't know.
We don't know what happened after that. Okay, because it can have repercussions as well on the locals. But they export queens to F1 queens to Cyprus. They don't export pure stuff. Okay, or so they say. But some of it looks interesting, some of it doesn't. The problem is that we don't know actually what original Anatoliaka looked like. Okay, because the original descriptions were so sort of vague. Okay, wasn't very detailed. So what is what? But anyway. We do what we can. We use what we can. If it looks interesting, we use it. If it doesn't, we scrub it.
Yeah, I know that this year they managed to release one Yementica line from Espresso. Did you manage to get your hands on it yet?
No.
Okay.
But he died, huh?
Yeah, he died.
Yeah. I didn't manage to get that. We didn't manage to, although we were promised some Pomonella, okay, we didn't, and we actually sent them some of our own queens in a pre-exchange for that. Again, the person involved never responded positively to that.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he couldn't in the end.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll come back in the future and say, we owe you this stuff.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your...
It's my pleasure.
For visiting us here. It was really my pleasure as well. Thank you very much. I would like to see you again someday.
Yeah, okay.